I'm not panicking, you're panicking. Okay, maybe we're all panicking after week 2. But seriously, we got some guys we need to talk about. I'm going to let you know, should you or should you not be panicking on them? And hey, if your week 2 fantasy football lineup does have you panicking, don't worry. There's still Underdog Fantasy where you can go get your pick'ems in for Monday Night Football. And if you're new to Underdog Fantasy, they're going to give you this Jalen Hurts new customer special. That's a freebie right there. That will get you back on track. Just make sure if you're joining Underdog for the first time, you join using promo code ENDGAME, because that not only is going to get you this Jalen Hurts special, but a 50% deposit match up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Of course, we've got to start with the Thursday night game, and let me say before anything here, I just want to say prayers up for Tua. Let's hope he's okay. Whatever decision he makes, it's going to be the right one for him, but let's just hope he's okay. But of course, this impacts the wide receivers, and let's start with Tyreek Hill. Had 6 targets, only 3 catches for 24 yards, no touchdowns in this game. Not what you want to see, and now he's going to have to play with Skylar Thompson for a while. But look, when you look at the splits for Tyreek Hill without Tua, he's actually been pretty good. Almost 10 targets a game, almost 100 yards a game. I think just under 7 catches a game. So I'm not too panicked about Tyreek here. So I'm only going to put the panic meter at a 5 for Tyreek Hill. Now, Jalen Waddle, I'm a little bit more worried because when you look at the splits for Waddle without Tua, it's not quite as good. But again, I don't think Tua is retiring. Ian Rappaport reported today that, hey, he's not thinking about it. He's going to go see a concussion specialist. Hopefully we see Tua at some point, but still, you got to be a little worried about Waddle in the short term. So right now, not knowing the status of Tua, I'm putting the panic level at a 7. And then on the Bills side, I think you got to be a little worried about tight end Dalton Kincaid. This is a guy who was drafted as an elite tight end. Only 4 catches for 33 yards in this game after a very down week 1 game. What I'm really concerned about here is, number 1, they're spreading the ball out to a bunch of different wide receivers. But number 2, Dawson Knox is playing quite a bit of snaps. So, look, I still think Kincaid will be okay. Maybe he just won't be like an incredible tight end this year. So right now, I'm putting the panic level at a 6. Moving on to Sunday, and let's start with 49ers and Vikings. And oh boy, Christian McCaffrey on IR now, and they're saying maybe 6 weeks here. So what do you do with Christian McCaffrey? Well, I still think he's an okay buy low opportunity if you actually buy low. Don't go trade a stud for Christian McCaffrey because, look, there is still risk that it's longer than 6 weeks. There is still risk that he aggravates this thing at some point when he comes back. But if you can buy low on CMC, it's worth the gamble, I think. But again, make sure you're buying low. But I am going to put the panic level at a 7 here because you are going to miss him for some games. And again, we don't know how this is going to heal. And then we also have to talk about Justin Jefferson. No, not because of his performance on Sunday. He was unbelievable once again, but he did leave this game late with an injury. Now I'm hearing it's probably a thigh contusion, which is a fancy word for a bruise. Nothing serious. So right now, I'm not too worried. I think we see him next week. I'm only going to put the panic level at a 3 here for Jefferson because if he's healthy, he's a stud. What about back to the 49ers, though, with Brandon Ayuk? Again, not a great game here. Only 4 catches for 43 yards, no touchdowns. It's kind of 2 down games in a row to start the season after getting that big contract. But look, Brock Purdy mostly struggled in this game. I know Debo had a nice game receiving, but that was pretty much it. I guess, and George Kittle too. But look, better days are ahead for Brandon Ayuk. No major panic here. Only a 4 for Brandon Ayuk. All right, moving on to Giants and Commanders. And it was not a great second game for Jaden Daniels for fantasy, but look, it was much better in real life than the first game. 226 passing yards, 44 rushing yards. Okay, he didn't have any touchdowns, but he also didn't have any interceptions for the second straight game. He looked more comfortable this game, throwing the ball better in this game. I know the fantasy points weren't there, but they're going to come. I'm not worried about Jaden Daniels. Panic level, only a 4 here. Now, I am a bit more worried about Terry McLaurin. I mean, on the good side, 8 targets this week, so they tried to get him involved. And he also had 6 receptions. That's also really good, but 22 yards? I mean, look, it's still just dink and dunk in this offense. Hopefully, as Jaden Daniels gets better, they take more shots. They open up this playbook a little bit. But right now, you got to be a little bit worried about Terry McLaurin. I'm going to put the panic level at a 7 for now, but I'm not giving up on Terry. But I think for the short term, you can definitely bench him. Chargers at Panthers, and I'm going to mention Justin Herbert one more time because I know there's people out there who drafted him and are still starting him. 130 yards, 2 touchdowns, 18 rushing yards, an interception, 11.1 fantasy points with 2 passing touchdowns. I mean, how is it going to get better for Justin Herbert? This is a team that's just going to run the ball as much as they can. Justin Herbert should not be started in 1 QB leagues. Last week I said a 9. It's still a 9. And last week I said, let's wait and see on Gus Edwards. And look, he got 18 carries for 59 yards while J.K. Dobbins is out there running wild, somehow only has 17 carries. I mean, look, Gus Edwards at this point is just touchdown or bust running back. You got to be worried here. Panic level at an 8. Now, on the Panthers side, this whole team is a panic level 10, and that includes Deontay Johnson. I mean, on the plus side, okay, led the team, 6 targets, but 3 catches, 15 yards. I mean, yeah, this is an absolute 10. You cannot start any Panthers until we see something or until Bryce Young is benched. Saints at the Cowboys, and who had the Saints as the best offense through 2 games on their bingo card? Well, that's what we got right now. On the Cowboys side, it was another struggle for Dak Prescott. I mean, okay, he almost had 300 passing yards, but only 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, just under 13 fantasy points. Not what you're looking for from Dak Prescott. Now, he does have another home matchup this week, but it is the Ravens, so it might be another struggle, but still, I think Dak Prescott will be fine. I'm only putting the panic level at a 4 on Dak Prescott. Colts at the Packers, and another quarterback that struggled this week, Anthony Richardson. Only 204 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 37 rushing yards, no rushing touchdowns, but three interceptions for under 10 fantasy points. Definitely not what you're looking for from Anthony Richardson, but look, Anthony Richardson's going to be fine. He's got that rushing upside. I'm not worried here. Panic level, only a 3. Now, I am a bit more worried on Michael Pittman, though. He did have 7 targets. That's good, but only 3 catches for 21 yards, 4 fantasy points, and another tough matchup this week against the Bears, Jalen Johnson. I mean, it may be a very slow start for Michael Pittman, but I'm getting a little worried here. I mean, A.D. Mitchell's involved. We're seeing the emergence of Alec Pierce. Yeah, I'm getting a little nervous for Michael Pittman. I mean, I'm not giving up on him yet, but I'm going to put the panic level at a 6. Then on the Packers side, Jaden Reed came into this game questionable with questionable quarterback play and was pretty bad. I mean, 2 catches for 9 yards, that's pretty terrible. But again, like we told most people not to start Jaden Reed. It was very risky. I'm not holding this against him. He's injured and he's got Malik Willis. Panic level of 1, he'll be fine. You just may want to bench him until Jordan Love comes back. Browns at Jaguars, and this seemed like a great spot for Amari Cooper to blow up, and he got 8 targets, 3 catches for 11 yards. Is that right? That doesn't even seem possible. 3 catches for 11 yards, 4.1 fantasy points. This is 2 weeks in a row of getting the targets with no production. Deshaun Watson, I don't even know if he wants to be out there, honestly. I'm staying far away from this passing game. This is a 7 for Amari Cooper, and I'm benching him until further notice. And then Christian Kirk, who we thought was a good bounce back candidate this week, did somehow worse than last week. 1 catch for minus 1 yard. Now, I think he did have a touchdown callback by penalty, so I guess it could have been okay, but even still, you can't be feeling very good here about Christian Kirk. And this is a game with Evan Ingram was out. I'm going to put the panic level at an 8 here. Very nervous for Christian Kirk. And if you drafted Trevor Lawrence to be your QB1 like you punted, you got to be very nervous too. I mean, 202 passing yards, 45 rushing yards, no touchdowns in this game, only 13.3 fantasy points, and now he has to play the Bills. This is also an 8 for Trevor Lawrence. I'm not sure we're going to see the guy we thought we were getting when he was picked number 1 overall. Jets at Titans, and this was somehow pretty good for fantasy all across the board, except Garrett Wilson, who only had 4 catches for 57 yards on 6 targets. Another game under 10 fantasy points. Look, Aaron Rodgers did at least look a little bit better. He threw 2 touchdowns. Unfortunately, neither of them were to Garrett Wilson, but I still think better days are ahead for Garrett Wilson. I'm only putting the panic level at a 4 here. Don't do anything crazy. He'll be fine. Bucks at Lions, and definitely don't do anything crazy with Mike Evans. I know it was a down game, only 3 catches, 42 yards, but he did have 6 targets. And look, Chris Godwin went off. Also, Aiden Hutchinson wrecked this passing game in Baker Mayfield. So there is absolutely no panic on Mike Evans. It happens. He's going to be fine. It's only a 1. And there's very little panic on Rachaad White here. I know it was a terrible game for him, but look, he still had more carries than Bucky Irving with 10. He had the only running back reception. Unfortunately, they only had 1 reception for 5 yards. I mean, it was a terrible game for Rachaad White, but look, it's just that kind of game. The Bucs couldn't do anything on offense really outside of Chris Godwin. I'm not too panicked about Rachaad White. Only a 4 for Rachaad White. But I'm starting to get pretty nervous about another stud tight end. The consensus tight end 1 in draft, Sam Laporta, another terrible game here in week 2. Only 2 catches for 13 yards on 3 targets. I think the big issue here for Sam Laporta is it's not just him and Amon-Ra St. Brown anymore. Jamison Williams is a true number 2 wide receiver. This is bad for Sam Laporta. Like, I'm sure he'll still be fine. I'm sure he'll still have some weeks when he scores some touchdowns, but you cannot be feeling good if you invested an early round pick in Sam Laporta. I got to put the panic at a 7. Raiders at the Ravens was another game that was mostly good for fantasy all around, unless you got Zamir White. I mean, okay, he did have 9 carries this game. That was, I guess, more than last game, but only 24 yards. He did catch 3 passes for 14 yards, but the real scary thing here is Alexander Mattison got the goal line carry and scored the touchdown. You got to be nervous for Zamir White. This wasn't even a game they were being blown out. This was a good game script for him. I got to put the panic level at least an 8 for Zamir White right now. Not looking good for Zamir. Afternoon game started with the Rams at the Cardinals, and just when it looked like the fantasy gods had given us back league-winning Cooper Kupp after the Puka Nacua injury, we had to suffer through a Cooper Kupp injury, and this is scary because this is an ankle injury, and if you remember, he missed most of the 2022 season with an ankle injury, and he dealt with ankle injuries last year as well. This is a wide receiver well over 30 years old who's already had ankle issues. You got to be nervous here for Cooper Kupp going forward. Obviously, don't know the severity right now, but man, ankle injury and was quickly ruled out. That is not a good sign. But at the same time, we don't know the severity just yet, so I'm only going to put the panic level at a 6. But if we hear something like high ankle sprain, IR, panic level shooting through the roof. Bengals at Chiefs is probably the best real-life game, but not necessarily for fantasy. Let's start with the Bengals and Jamar Chase. Another subpar game here. 4 catches, only 35 yards. Again, no touchdowns. Not even the leading receiver on this Bengals team. And look, last week you could say, okay, they didn't look good and Burrow didn't look good. Burrow looked much better in this game here. So maybe training camp actually matters. Maybe, should have been out there for training camp. But look, it's Jamar Chase. Burrow looks fine. Not panicked here at all. Only going to set the panic level to a 4. And even though Patrick Mahomes once again did not have a big fantasy game, I'm not freaking out here. I mean, he had 2 passing touchdowns, only 151 passing yards. That's definitely not great. And 2 interceptions, also not great. But this is Patrick Mahomes. He's going to be better. Now, look, when I was talking up Patrick Mahomes, I assumed he was going to have a healthy Hollywood Brown, plus a healthy Rashee Rice, plus Xavier Worthy. Obviously, one of those guys is gone for the season, but he still has weapons. He's still a great quarterback. Look, maybe he's not going to be the QB1 this year, but he's still going to be fine. Panic level only a 2. Now, I don't feel the same way about one of his weapons, and that is Travis Kelce. 1 catch for 5 yards. Now, granted, he did have like a big play called back, and he could have scored a touchdown. He got tackled at the 1, but still, how can you feel good about this? 3 targets in this game? Like I said last week, thinking when Hollywood Brown was going to be healthy all year, how does it get better for Travis Kelce? I'm still asking the same question, and that's with Hollywood Brown out for the year. How does it get better for Travis Kelce? I think Travis Kelce is going to end up being a bust this year. I really do. I mean, panic level very high for Travis Kelce. I got to set it at an 8. Now, rookie Xavier Worthy did not go off like he did in week 1, but that's what you're going to get with these rookie wide receivers. 2 catches, 17 yards, no touchdowns. Certainly not what you were looking for if you flexed them as like a high upside flex play, but again, he's a rookie. It's going to take some time. There's going to be ups and downs. Look what we saw with Marvin Harrison. Week 1, invisible. Week 2 was a monster. He'll be fine. No panic here. Only going to set the panic level to a 5. Just understand you're on the Xavier Worthy roller coaster. And then I didn't think I would have to mention Isaiah Pacheco, who's doing great. 90 rushing yards, 5 catches, 21 yards. I mean, he hadn't scored, but he had done pretty much everything else. And then he left the game with what looked like an ankle injury. Now, we don't know the severity here. It was very close to the end of the game. We don't know if he could have come back in, if they needed him, or how this would have played out. So right now, I'm going to set the panic level at a 5 just because we don't know. But man, we know ankle injuries can have a huge impact on running backs, and he was looking great through 2 games. So let's hope it's not serious. And then we finished with the Steelers at the Broncos in a game that was pretty much not fantasy friendly for anybody on any team, and especially George Pickens. Only 2 catches for 29 yards. But look, this was a tough matchup against Pat Surtain. Not to mention he's on the Steelers. Like, this is what you're going to get with George Pickens. There's going to be weeks where he looks great. There's going to be weeks where he looks terrible. There's going to be weeks where he's okay. It's going to be a roller coaster with George Pickens this year. Look, you drafted him. You signed up for him. No reason to panic here. Panic level, only a 5. And whether you won or lost this week, it is way too soon to panic on your fantasy team, but it's not too soon to get ready for week 3. Make sure you stay tuned to our week 3 playlist right here with everything you need to dominate. Start, sit, booms, trades, everything you need you're going to find in this playlist right here.